Hello, Captains. This is the Doctor, and welcome to another Star Trek Online Starship review. This is the Temporal Dreadnought Cruiser Tier 6 Starship review. Hello, fellow captains. As you saw, this is the beginning of my Temporal Dreadnought Cruiser Tier 6 review, and here she is. This is the Temporal Dreadnought Cruiser. It is a Tier 6 starship. This is, of course, considered one of the 31st century ships, and it is actually part of a bundle that you could have purchased a long time ago and probably still can purchase it as a bundle of 31st century ships. It is, of course, the engineering cruiser dreadnought variant. There is a science ship and there is an escort ship. I have already reviewed the science ship. I will put a link up at the top of the screen, top right corner, and you can check out my review of the Temporal Science ship. The other one, the Escort, I have yet to review, but I am going to be reviewing it after this one. So this is the Cruiser variant. So as you can see, I'm flying it around here just to give you guys some nice visuals of it so you can see what it looks like. Now, I do have a couple of visual things turned on here. I'll go ahead and take them off. I've got the shield of the Terran Empire. I love that shield effect. But if I take that off, this is actually what the ship looks like by default. So this is like the default view of it. Very, very white, very shiny, very light colored, very bright, very blue. I think, yeah, I just want to make sure I have all the other visuals turned off here. We'll disable the impulse engine view. There we go. So yeah, this is what it looks like by default. Very light colored ship. It's got those blue like module things on it. I don't know what all this stuff is, but it's lit up. The deflector dish is under here. A nice little deflector dish. Actually, it's a pretty big deflector dish. This is a pretty big ship. But the way that it looks, it's kind of like tucked up in there. Quite nice. I like that. It follows the lines of the ship quite well. It's not a deflector dish that like sticks out at you. Even the impeller drive thing, which I think is actually the warp engines. This thing here, you'll see this on the other temporal ships, like the science one. This really sticks out the back. But on this ship, it's tucked in underneath the ship and not visible, not sticking out. And so it allows the ship to have like this wing structure, which actually looks really cool. It's got a really, really sharp design to it. I have to say, this is one of the better looking ships in this game. I really like the Wells class 29th century ship designs, and then the 31st century ship designs are actually very, very cool looking. Very unique for Star Trek, but I like that visual and I like that look quite a bit. So that is pretty cool. I think what we're going to do is going to be doing these ship reviews just a little bit different, not a whole lot compared to how I usually do them in the past. I think now I'm going to start off like I'm doing right now, showing you, what the ship looks like in space to give you some good visuals so you can see what it looks like. And we'll do some size comparisons because I sometimes don't quite get enough across how big or small these ships are. So if we can fly up to other people, for example, we can see and compare how big this ship is to other players. For example, here's a scimitar, right? Well, look how big my ship is compared to the scimitar. I mean, it's like the same size, or maybe even a little bit bigger in some areas. It's not as wide as the scimitar, naturally, but it's like longer. See that? It is pretty fat, though. Yeah, there's a good view of that. So you can see that flying this ship is quite a big ship to fly. So that you have to take those things into consideration when you talk about piloting skill, because naturally a smaller ship is going to be more maneuverable, and you're going to have to zoom in more with your, mouse scroll wheel, to see the ship. Whereas with a big ship like this, you typically scroll back. Now this is me scrolled all the way back. I can't not zoom out any farther than this. So you typically play like that. You typically play zoomed out quite a bit. And of course flying the ship is going to be different as well. The maneuverability is going to be different and all that because it's a bigger ship. So when I compare these ships and talk about these ships, size is definitely one factor that you want to take into consideration. This is a huge ship. This is a big ship. So it maneuvers slow. You've got to fly it like that. You're going to be zoomed out a lot. That kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect out of a ship like this. I think that the first thing we will do is go to the Z store so that I can show you all the specifications on this ship, what it's all about, and we'll read about it and get all that knowledge and factual information in our heads first before I show you my build and show you my current specs and all that kind of stuff. So if we go to the Z store and we go to ships and we go to tier 6, you will see it is part of a bundle. You can purchase it as a bundle still if you do not have, if you don't want to purchase it separately. You can have all 3 ships. Remember, they all 3 come with a unique console, and you can take all the consoles together and put them on one ship and have added features and powers because of that. It is a combined set of all 3 ships that you can also have, or you can just get the ships separately, and then you'll just only have the console for that ship. But there's the science ship on the right side here. Here's the Temporal Dreadnought cruiser, and then here's the Raider or the Escort in the middle. So let's go specifically to this one. If we can find it down here. I wish they organized these a little bit better. So here this is the Temporal Dreadnought cruiser. Tier 6, it's Chronos class is what it's called. Designed to face the greatest threats of the temporal battlefield, the massive Chronos-class dreadnought is truly a force to be reckoned with. When the temporal Cold War goes hot, Starfleet calls for the power of the Chronos. Temporal starships are capable of making subtle alterations on the molecular level through the use of molecular reconstruction. This technology allows a starship to assume one of three different configurations: defense, offensive, and support. Each configuration has their own strengths and weaknesses. Each of these configurations generate their own specific counter. Up to 6 counters can be generated at a time. These counters are used to fuel your molecular deconstruction beam. We talked about this in the temporal science ship as well, because that ship, also being a temporal starship, has this molecular deconstruction beam. In fact, all of the temporal ships do. 26th century ships and even the TOS temporal ships all have this molecular deconstruction beam, which I have found to be a very, very, very good weapon against enemies that have a high health. Enemies that are really powerful, really tough, the boss enemies, this deconstruction beam really, really does good. So out of the three configurations, you've got the defensive configuration. While it's active, the starship systems will dynamically reconfigure to fill more of a defensive role. This provides a boost to maximum shield power and incoming hull healing. This comes at a cost to flight speed and turn rate. The offensive configuration, it makes the ship more into an offensive role. It provides a boost to engine power, speed, and turn, but it comes at a cost of incoming hull healing. So I actually like the offensive configuration the best, especially on a ship like this, which already turns pretty slow. I can get an engine power, speed, and turn boost by using the offensive configuration. I do have the negative effect of incoming hull healing is a little bit less, but still, this ship has a very high hull strength anyway because it's a Dreadnought cruiser, so I find that that's not a huge negative for that. So I really like the offensive configuration on this ship. It gets me that turn rate boost, that speed boost that is, I think, really necessary on a very large ship like this. Makes it feel more maneuverable, better. I can pilot it better. But then there's also the support configuration. This is a support role. It provides a boost to auxiliary power, control strength, and exotic damage. But it comes at a cost to energy weapon damage. So I don't particularly like the support one because it does have that cost of energy weapon damage. And that to me is just something that I don't like to lessen on my ship. I like to have a lot of energy weapon damage. So I particularly don't use the support configuration, but I suppose if you were about to fire off some, a whole lot of science-y powers with exotic damage and control and that sort of thing, then perhaps you could activate support configuration, then activate those science powers, and then go back to the offensive configuration. You would just have to do a lot of button pressing and stuff to make sure that all of that's working. And as all of those are working, they build up these counters. And when they reach their maximum level, you have this molecular deconstruction beam. Activating this ability requires a total of 6 counters. Blah, blah, blah. This power's damage scales with the number of offensive counters consumed. Its hull healing scales with the number of defensive counters consumed. Lastly, its disabled duration scales with the number of support counters consumed. Activating this ability will consume all counters. The Temporal Dreadnought Cruiser comes equipped with the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor Universal Console. So this is the console that makes this starship unique in its power. And of course, like I said, it's actually a set. You can take the Raiders and the Science console, put them on this ship, and have added abilities as well. It says here, when this ability is activated, your starship will draw the attention of nearby foes. You will recover hull hit points and shield hit points each time you are hit by directed energy weapons, and you will gain a stack of Chrono Tachyon capacitance. After a short time, this effect will end, and you will gain a short duration buff to directed energy damage, critical hit chance, and critical severity based on the number of stacks of Chrono Tachyon capacitance. So there's a lot happening with this ability here, and it's kind of hard to track and see what's going on when you're in the heat of battle. But just know that it's almost like a taunt. It gains the attention of nearby foes, but in return, when they fire on you, you recover hull hit points and shield hit points, and you build this capacitance. And as this capacitance builds, it builds and builds, and then it releases, and you have a buff to directed energy damage, critical hit chance, and critical severity. Again, there's just so much going on there, it's hard to track all that at once. So I will activate the feature, and I will use it in combat, you will see, and you can watch closely at all the little icons at the bottom of your screen there, that are buffing and debuffing my ship and all that, and you can see what's happening. It'll be hard for me to do that while I'm in the heat of battle, but maybe as you're watching the video, you can look at that and kind of see what is happening there on the ship. This console also provides a passive bonus to the hull capacity and engineering readiness skill. This console may be only equipped on 31st century temporal starships, but may be slotted in any console slot. This starship has a single hangar bay equipped with Epoch Fighters. These light craft are equipped with anti-proton beam arrays and Chronoton torpedo launchers. So this does have a hangar bay. It's a dreadnought. After reaching level 5 in your Temporal Dreadnought Cruiser Tier 6 Starship Mastery, you will unlock the exotic Modulation Starship trait. While this trait is slotted, using Directed Energy Modulation or any temporal operative ability will provide a large boost to exotic damage. So that's basically its Starship trait. It is a boost to exotic damage. So if you are not using any powers that are exotic damage based, science powers, like let's say you're using this ship like I am on an engineering character and I'm not really using science abilities that much, then this trait is not going to really help you at all. And in fact, it doesn't help me at all. I am not using any powers that are exotic damage because I already have a science character that does those things. This is my engineering character I have this on. This is my cruiser character where I put cruisers and dreadnoughts on. And he doesn't really use a bunch of science powers. He just bases all of his powers on beam arrays, fire at will, hangar bay, stuff like that is where all his power comes from. So I'm not really using science abilities that have any exotic damage. So in a build like that, this trait is useless. So that trait would be more useful if perhaps you put a science character on the ship. If you were flying this with a science character and you're naturally using a lot of science abilities with exotic damage, well then that trait could help you out quite a bit. However, this trait could help you in that if you got this ship, you could unlock that trait and you can actually use that trait on another ship. For example, I could get this cruiser on my science character and go ahead and unlock that trait, that starship trait, and then go use it on my science character and on his ship build. Because this trait on that character, that science character with those science powers, would be a huge buff. So that's probably where this trait would help you the most. But if you're not using exotic damage, it's not going to help you. And in this current build that I'm using, the trait doesn't help me at all. But it is what it is. So the hull strength on this ship is 49,680 at level 50, 57,600 at level 60. It has a 1.15 shield modifier, 4 forward weapons, 4 aft, 4 device slots, 1 lieutenant commander tactical, 1 ensign engineering, 1 commander engineering, so there's, our commander cruiser type ship, / temporal operative. You can have temporal abilities on this ship, 1 lieutenant commander science, and 1 lieutenant universal / temporal operative. So again, this ship is definitely built to use those new temporal bridge officer powers, of which, by the way, I do not have any on this ship to demonstrate for you today at all. I have not yet trained a character or a bridge officer in the temporal abilities, and I have not yet taken a look at any of the temporal abilities on a bridge officer. But this ship can support it, so that's the important thing here. Console modifications, 4 tactical and 4 engineering. Pretty symmetrical there between tactical and engineering, and then 3 science. So it's not really built to be a science ship, although with 3 science you could make it into a decent science ship if you really wanted to, I suppose. But I wouldn't really go that route with this particular ship. Base turn rate is 9.5, and that's the ringer here. I told you guys this is going to have a slow turn rate. Impulse modifier 0.15. It's got a high inertia. +10 to weapon power and to shield power and to engine power on this ship, which is real interesting. Console, universal chrono Tachyon capacitor, molecular reconstruction, 1 hangar bay, Epoch Fighters. Remember, anti-proton weapons and Chronoton torpedoes. So our symmetrical, thematically designed build is going to use anti-protons with chronotons. Hangar Bays, because it is also a cruiser dreadnought. It does have two of the command abilities. It has attract fire and weapon system efficiency. It also has the Starship Mastery package, of course, rapid repairs, enhanced plating, devastating weaponry, armored hull, and the Starship trait. So those are the specs on this ship. So yeah, it's built not so much for science, even though the trait on it is science-based. I would say that it's probably not the best sciencey ship. Although you could go that route if you really wanted to. In my opinion, I would go with the temporal science ship instead. Okay, let's look at the mastery on it. The first mastery that unlocks is rapid repairs. That regenerates 1263.7 hull, 1.25% of your current max every 3 seconds in space. Twice this amount is regenerated out of combat. The second mastery is enhanced hull plating, all energy damage resistance and radiation damage resistance, plus 25. And then it has a heightened critical chance, plus 2.5% critical chance buff. And then plus 10% hull hit points for an even higher hull hit point there. And then, of course, the trait. Directed energy modulation and temporal operative abilities grant exotic damage, plus 20% exotic damage for 15 seconds. So I do have directed energy modulation. I can go ahead and enable that. And when I do, you will see the trait will be active. There's the trait, exotic modulation. And that's basically it. I've got plus 20% exotic damage now for a few seconds, and then it'll go away. But again, I'm not using any powers that use exotic damage. So this trait, for me, on this ship anyway, on this build, is pointless. But it could be for you. It could not be for you. I mean, you could totally build in exotic damage abilities if you wanted to. That's totally up to you. You can design your ship however you want. So, yeah, you just saw my build here. I'll bring it up again. Again, this is just one way to build this ship. This is not the ultimate best way to build this ship. Build the ship however you want. There's a million ways to do it. There's probably faults in mine. There's probably good things in mine. But this is what I've currently got on this ship here. I am actually using the Soul Defense set on this ship, which I do pretty much on all my cruisers and dreadnoughts because I have it all at Epic. But I've got the Soul Defense Deflector, I've got the Soul Defense Impulse Engine, and I have the Elite Fleet Plasma Integrated Warp Core with amp, weapon to aux, weapon to aux for a reason, weapon to shields, and all that. I have the Soul Defense Covariant Shield. As you can see, it's got a 10,648 maximum shield capacity. Not the highest out there, but not terrible. With the hull strength on this ship, it's perfectly fine. I am using an anti-proton build. I wanted to keep everything, thematically the same on this ship, and since the hangar bay, the hangar pets, use anti-protons and chronoton torpedoes, I wanted that, same setup on my ship. So I've got two dual anti-proton beam banks. They've got crit D times 2 damage pen on them. I also have a anti-proton beam array, crit D times 2 damage pen, actually / damage. I do have a transphasic torpedo launcher that I'm using as well. I should probably change it over to chronoton. I don't know why I'm using transphasic. That's just apparently that's what I got. But that's not a huge letdown. I mean, that's a pretty good torpedo still. It does kinetic damage with shield penetration and all that. I got 2 beams in the back, and then I got 2 omnis in the back as well. One is an anti-proton omni, one is a kinetic omni, and then 2 regular beams in the back. Crit D times 2 damage pen. So the modifiers are pretty good. They are ultra rare. I would like to make them epic one day, but that of course costs a lot of resources. But one day I will eventually get all these weapons up to epic. Now, as for the consoles, let's go through the engineering. I do have the Universal Sustained Radiant Field. I believe this is from the Iconian. I think this is from the Iconian reputation. I want to say Iconian. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But the reason why I like this one, especially on this ship, is just to help me do more damage. It has a plus 12.5% all weapon damage, so that just flat out gives me more weapon damage. Also a more of a hull healing and shield heals as well for being a cruiser type ship. It just fits real nicely. I get those big hull heals, those big shield heals, and then more weapon damage out of this console in an engineering slot. So that's quite nice. Then I have the Neutronium that I typically always have. I might switch over from Neutronium now to the Trellium D console that they have in a mission reward. It's actually a really cool... It gives a lot more than just the dilithium Neutronium one here. But then there's also new ones now in the K13 starbase I may look at. Anyway, for right now I've gotten the Neutronium, but I may change that in the future. I got an EPS, I got the Borg Universal Assimilated Module. Now here is the console that comes with this ship. This is the Universal Chrono Tachyon Capacitor. So just having it on my ship gives me a plus 15 Starship hull capacity and a plus 50 Starship engineering readiness. Improves engineering bridge officer cooldowns and increases Starship maximum hit points just for having it on the ship. And then its ability is a PBAOE, Photon, hull and shield heal, delayed, plus damage, plus critical chance, plus critical severity buff. Taunts up to 5 foes within 5 kilometers for 15 seconds, so you do need to be very close to the enemy. 5 kilometers. This is another one of those abilities that I don't really quite like, simply because you have to be so close to the enemy. There are other abilities on other ships like this where you have to be within 4 or 3 kilometers of your enemy for it to have any effect, and well, you're not always that close to the enemy. So if you want this to work to its best ability, you need to be within 5 kilometers. So keep that in mind about this ability. Plus 24-37 hull healing every 1 second for 15 seconds, plus 11-25 shield healing every 1 second for 15 seconds. After 15 seconds, applies Chrono Tachyon charge to self. Effects scale with stacks of Chrono Tachyon capacitance, and you get plus 20-40% bonus directed energy damage, plus 5-10% critical hit chance, and plus 25-50% critical severity. So this can actually make your ship do a whole lot more critical severity if you use it correctly. If you're using it within that 5 kilometers of the enemies and you get the full stacks of Chrono Tachyon capacitance, you can get up to a plus 50% critical severity on this thing. So that can really help your DPS. But you just have to, it's got to work in the right scenarios for that to happen. So that is the ability, and as you can see, it's part of the 31st Century Temporal Technologies set. Like I said, there are other consoles on the Science Ship and the Raider. If you put both of those on here, you get the Tactical System Stabilizer and the Causal Anchor. Then you have a Set 2 bonus called Advanced Engineering and a Set 3 bonus called Temporal Synergies. I do not have those on this ship right now. But that ability would be plus 10% directed energy damage and plus 3% maximum hit points with the Set 2 bonus. And the Set 3 bonus would be Temporal Synergies, would be a 50% reduction time to 31st Century Temporal Console abilities. So that means the abilities like this console here would be reduced by 50%, or the cooldown time would be reduced by 50%. So that means you could fire these abilities off quicker, basically. And if you had all of them on one ship, you would be able to fire, all 3 of them off a lot quicker when they're all together. That's basically that. I do have a Bioneural Gel Pack on here. I've got my Temporal Disentanglement Suite. I love that because Aux Power boosts your critical chance and critical severity. And then, of course, I've got anti-proton damage down here in tactical consoles. And then we come to the Hangar Bays. This thing comes with this hangar bay, this hangar right here. Hangar Epoch Fighters, rare hangar bay. Temporal multi-mission science vessel, temporal dreadnought cruiser. It fires an anti-proton beam array and a chronoton torpedo launcher. Launches a wing of 3 level 61 Epoch Fighters. Each hangar supports 2 deployed wings at any given time. So the regular one that the ship comes with is just 1 anti-proton beam and chronoton torpedo launchers. If you want better than that, then you need to either go to the dilithium store or your fleet holding in order to get better fighters. If we go to the dilithium store, you will see under Hangar Pets, we should find these here, and here they are, Epoch Fighters. So for 25 on my character anyway, for 25,712 dilithium, I could get this version of the Epoch Fighters, and it upgrades them to 2 anti-proton beam arrays, a chronoton torpedo launcher, and channeled deconstruction ability. So that's out of the dilithium store. And then if you go all out and go to your Starfleet, your fleet Starfleet base, then you can get the best quality, and that is these Hangar Elite Epoch Fighters. You get 2 anti-proton beam arrays, chronoton torpedo launchers, channeled deconstruction, and fire at will 1. That's right, your Hangar Epoch Fighters will actually be able to have a fire at will ability. So that's pretty cool out of them. So I definitely have that. I got this from our Fleet Starbase. Of course, these are not cheap. These are very expensive in terms of fleet marks and dilithium and all that. But if you can afford them, that is your best option there on hangars. Let's go ahead and launch the fighters so you can take a look at them. Epoch Fighters here. They have a hull strength of almost 4,000. See if I can get one in the camera. There's one right there. Kind of hard to see. There we go. That's what they look like. Right there. So you can launch 2 wings of them. They come out the front, apparently. Can't really tell where they're launching from. It looks like they're launching from like right under here. Although I'm guessing they're probably launching maybe from here. But anyway, they come out the front. And there you have your fighters. 6 of them to aid you in combat. So, that's pretty cool. And then here is the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor. And there's all the stats on it, which we already went over. I'll activate it now so you can see what the effect looks like.
Warning, ship is under attack.
That's what it looks like. Remember, you need to be within 5 kilometers for it to actually do something. Chrono Tachyon Capacitor. And then it expires. And that's that. That's about it, man. That's the unique features on this ship. There really isn't anything else that's unique. There's the Starship trait, which improves exotic damage. There's the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor, which does do a whole lot of good, but you just have to use it in the right situations and conditions and be close to your enemy. And that's pretty much it. I mean, those are the 2 unique things about this ship. Otherwise, just the fact that this ship can support, temporal abilities also makes it, I guess, unique, because you can go and put, temporal bridge officers on this thing and have temporal bridge officer abilities. So if we go to stations, you will see we have a commander, a full engineering commander level seating here with a temporal on it. That little triangle means it's temporal abilities. So we can have full commander temporal abilities on this dreadnought. That's quite nice. Or you can have a lieutenant temporal abilities, and this is a universal slot here. Then you got lieutenant commander tactical, you got an ensign engineering, and a lieutenant commander science. So this actually does have a little bit of a beefed up science with the fact that it is a lieutenant commander science and not just a lieutenant science. So you would be able to have a tier 3 science ability on this ship. So you certainly could have an exotic ability. I could put a gravity well. I could put a gravity well 2. I don't think gravity well 3 fits in lieutenant commander. I could put a gravity well 2 there. I could put a Tychon's Rift 2 there. Or what I've got here, what I'm using this slot for, is Tachyon Beam 3 for some shield drainage on my enemies. So that's quite nice. But that's not an exotic damage ability. So the trait's not going to be helping me. But at least you have that Lieutenant Commander Science position, so you can put some Tier 3 Science abilities in that slot, just like I've done here. And then, of course, because you've got a Commander slot, you can have Tier 3 Commander ability or Engineering abilities, or Tier 3 Temporal abilities as well. So that's the bridge officer seating that this ship supports. I think it is quite flexible and allows you to do some cool things. Again, I have not experimented with the temporal bridge officer powers yet. That is one thing I've yet to get into, but one day I will, and maybe I'll revisit this ship with some temporal powers on it once I figure all of that out. So let's look at the specs on this ship real quick. I've got a power transfer rate of 376%, very high. I love that high transfer rate. My hull strength is 101,098, so above 100,000 hull. So very good hull strength for this Dreadnought. 118.2% hull repair a minute, and if I think that will change, depending on what configuration mode I want to put this in as well. Shield regeneration. My shield capacity is at 20,000. Shield capacity. I have 55% resists on everything. My crit chance is 14.7% and crit severity is 80.4. So not the highest crit severity, but not terrible. But remember, with the capacitance on this thing, as I build up those stacks, I can increase my critical severity by plus 50% if I use that ability correctly. My turn rate is 11.1 sitting still, and if I go to impulse, I have got it buffed up to 17.4 degrees per second. So definitely not as bad as the default turn rate. And with that improved turn rate, you can see here how I am turning, and it's actually not that bad, considering I am using all beams. So with all beams, that turn rate is very doable. I do have a emergency power to engines, and of course evasive maneuvers, just so I can get out of some tight situations real fast if I need to. My other powers here, everything else is just based on, what other abilities you would normally have, your bridge officer abilities. Nothing real special here. This is from the Soul Defense set. This is the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor. These are my Epoch Fighters. This is an Engines Capacitor from the Warp Core. I have my Command Weapon System Efficiency that I use from this ship. And then, of course, these abilities here, offensive configuration, defensive, or support. And I always go for offensive, which gives me even more of a turn rate, plus 20% turn rate, and plus 20% flight speed and engine power. So I can't use that here in Soul Space, but when I go into battle, you'll notice that I activate it, and my turn rate is even better, which makes this ship very enjoyable. I don't enjoy slow-moving ships. I don't enjoy ships that turn slow. So having this ability of the offensive configuration really, really helps, and I enjoy it. I enjoy having that ability. Let's look at my weapon DPSs, just so you'll be in the know. My dual anti-proton beam banks up front are doing 1782 DPS, 2228 anti-proton damage. Should be the same on both, and it is. My single beam is doing 1453 DPS and 1816 anti-proton damage. My beams in the back are 1371. They're not epic yet. My Omni is doing 1232 and 1540 anti-proton. My Cutting Beam is doing 1638 DPS and 2000 kinetic damage. And my Transphasic Torpedo is doing 506 DPS, but 5000 kinetic damage. And of course, I buffed that with, emergency power to weapons 3. So if we're at, 1782 and 2228 anti-proton damage, I can buff that. Now we're at 2000 DPS and 2578 anti-proton. This is, of course, emergency power to weapons 3. It's the highest level. That is plus 16.6% all energy damage. So all that helps. And all my other buffs and stuff I have. And, of course, this one as well, which is giving me that plus 12.5% all energy damage with this console on the ship as well. I like that. So all in all, I do a good amount of damage against the enemy. Don't really have any problems with this ship. Before we go into battle and show you what this ship can do in combat, let's go to Earth Space Dock and I'll show you what configurations are available in the ship tailor. That way, if you are thinking about, making color changes on the ship or anything else, I'll just show you what is possible. And then after we do this, I guess we can take a look at the bridge, although it's the same temporal bridge. It's really no different. Let's see, what do I want? Customize my ship. Customize Starship. So here is the default skin on it. This is what it looks like. Chronos, nothing too good there. It's a very brightly colored ship. It's not dark by any means. You cannot change the interior. You're only going to get the temporal bridge. You cannot change window type. There's only one type. You cannot change material. There's only the reason why I have two types here. Type 26 is this is from the 26th century ships, and if you do not have that bundle, then you will not have that Type 26 material. You will just have the temporal material. So really, there's not even material options on this ship, which is kind of weird that you would not have like your veteran material, or you would not have the upgrade material. Kind of weird that those materials are not available on this ship to at least try out. So you really only have one material, so there's really nothing there. Nothing under style change at all. There's nothing about the style you can change on this. You can change the pattern, thank goodness. That's like about the only thing here you can change is the pattern. However, there is no unique pattern. These are just the standard patterns that come with the ship. All standard there. What is there to say except you can change the color of the pattern. That's it. You can change the color of the pattern, front and back, basically. You can change the color of the pattern front and back, and that's going to be it. That's about as pink as you can make the ship right there. There we go. That's as pink as I can make the ship. So you're not going to get a whole lot of options with coloring either. That coloring is based on the pattern, so as we change the pattern, you'll see it changes on the ship as well. I guess Corvus is pretty pink. Trying to find something that like covers most of the ship. And there's really nothing that covers most of the ship. So you're not going to be able to do a whole lot there either, really. And you can't change the material. So really what you're stuck with on this ship is what you put in the visual slots. As you saw I did at the very beginning, I used the Terran Empire shield, which has a very good visual look on it. We'll take a look at it again. Because of that shield, I think it makes these ships look really awesome. So not a whole lot of customization there. Let's go to the bridge real quick. And what you will see here is that this is the standard Wells class bridge. Nothing different at all. It's the same as the Temporal Science ship. It's the same on all the temporal ships. It's the Wells class 29th century bridge. And there's no difference on this ship at all, which is quite frustrating because they just didn't give us enough detail to, you know, create a new 31st century looking bridge. Instead, they just rehashed and reused a 29th century bridge. In fact, there's nothing different about it at all. So it's a bit frustrating that they didn't put, you know, that detail into it. But what you gonna do? What you gonna do? So no unique bridge. Let's go up into space again. I'll go ahead and put the Terran Empire shield back on because I like the visuals of that, just to show you how much better it looks with that shield. So here's the ship, and then I put that on the shield visual, and that's what I get. That, to me, looks so much better than the default skin. So this is the shield that I like to use for visual impact, not for my actual shield, although it's not a terrible shield, but for the visual effects. Look at that in there. That's cool looking with the deflector that way. Makes everything purple and black and just really cool. I like this view a lot. Of course, that's just going to be dependent on whatever shield you put on there. Other shields will have different effects. I was trying to look to see if I had other shields on here that I could put on here for you to check out, but I don't have any other shields in my inventory currently, so we'll just stick with that one. I'll turn the visuals back on of the Impulse, and that's how I like my ship to look. Okay, at this point, we have come to the point now where there's nothing left to do except for me to go into combat and show you these features. I will try to enable the directed modulation to show you that the Tier 6 Starship trait is being enabled. Even though I don't have exotic damage abilities, you can at least, you know, see how that would work. Then I will use the Tachyon Capacitor. I'll get real close to the enemy and we'll activate it and just see what happens there. And then otherwise, I will launch the fighters and I'll show you, you know, how they fight. Maybe we can see them do some fire at will. That would be pretty cool. And then I will just, you know, just fight like I do normally with the ship and show you how well it does in combat. You know, just go all out and see what she can do. How does that sound? So if y'all don't mind, stand by and I will cut to something very interesting. Okay, welcome back everybody. We're going to start out first at Karaya, and the reason why I like starting here is because it's Romulans, easy to get along with, not, and we can try out our powers in an easy way, something that's not going to just totally annihilate us. That way you can see how the powers work on this ship. And then we'll worry about getting into some harder stuff later. I think I'll probably do both red alerts. I want to do the Tholians and the Borg. I think those are always fun to do. And who knows what else after that. Maybe a crystalline catastrophe thing, because that event's going on right now, so that could be cool. So yeah, let's go into this and see what happens. The first thing that I want to show off, because it has the biggest effect on anything we're going to be doing here, is, well, I guess it would be the shuttle, or Epoch Fighters, and then the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor. Really, that Tier 6 Starship trait, like I said, isn't helping me here in any way, so there's really no point. I use directed modulation all the time, so you'll see that being enabled, but that trait is just not going to be helping me. But the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor could, and so could the fighters. So I'm not going to launch the fighters yet. I'm gonna go in on these two, on this Diderdex and this Mogai. I am gonna hit my offensive counter, so now my turn rate will be much improved.
Need an assist?
No, not really. I want to get close to these guys. Now here goes the capacitor thing.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target shields have failed.
I want it to kind of do its thing, you know. I guess that was it. Yeah, darn if I could tell if it was doing anything. Really, really hard to tell, honestly, if it was doing anything. I mean, I know it was,
Warning. Ship is under
but
attack.
it's so hard to tell. Let's get my fighters out. I didn't want the Enterprise to show up. I really didn't need that. There's my fighters. You can see my fighters. The Enterprise is messing this whole thing up.
Ship is under attack. Target shields have failed.
Well, guys, the Enterprise ruined this whole thing for me. I didn't want it to show up.
Ship is under attack. Target shields have failed.
Well, I'm sorry about that. The Enterprise showed up and messed up the whole thing. I didn't want it to do that, but... Let's go to another patrol real quick. And maybe we can show off those abilities a little bit better without the Enterprise this time. Let's go to Japori. So, as you can see, I was using the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor, but it's hard to realize, you know, when it's actually working and what it's doing because I don't have like a live display that's showing me like my current critical chance and critical severity. I could bring it up. I mean, I could probably bring it up and like, you know, in stats and like try to watch this window and see if it's going up or down, you know, and all that. But that gets in the way. That's a huge menu. What I would like in this game, that would be really cool, would be like some kind of live window that's showing, one, your current like DPS as it's changing, and two, like your critical chance and critical severity and some of those numbers. If it were like showing that in real time as you're fighting the enemy and what's actually happening, that would be really cool. A really cool addition for this game. You know, like a UI window that could be displayed and show those numbers for you live. So it's hard for me to actually see what my critical chance and severity is while I'm in combat with the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor. Dang it, it showed up. Oh, screw that.
Need an assist?
No, I'm out. No, we're not doing that again. Dang. Well, I'll tell you what. The one time I want to show things, the Enterprise shows up every single time. Alright, let's do something different then. Because it can't show up in these. Let's do a red alert. Let's go to a Tholian. How about that? So it definitely cannot show up in these. Hopefully this will feel fast. I don't know if it will or not. Yeah, so like I was saying, some kind of live window where it shows like your current critical chance and severity, what that is, what your DPS is, you know, like combined and things like that. A live window of those numbers you can watch. That'd be really cool to have on your screen. Okay, cool. We're going to get in. Then you would know how well these abilities are actually working. And when they're working. You would know when, like, your critical severity is at its max level. Right now, I don't know when the critical severity is at its max. There we go. Not bad at all. Basically took out that whole side. All these people were over here on this side. Me and like one other person were on that side. So took out that whole side and one of those things, one of those tarantulas. So quite nice. Very powerful ship. I don't know what to say. I used the Chrono Tachyon converter Hopefully it made a difference. Used all of my abilities. I'll tell you what made a huge difference on that tarantula was the molecular deconstruction beam. I really can't speak enough about that. That weapon, excuse me, that weapon is very good on any temporal ship. Let's see if we can do a Borg red alert. The Tholians, if it looked like I was moving kind of slow, oops. If it looked like I was moving kind of slow, it's because the Tholians, man, they get you with two things. They have a tractor beam, which gets you, can't turn, and then they get you with their torpedo. Its ability is that it actually, like, stops you from moving. Slows your turn rate and everything. You really can't move much with their torpedo. So, that combined with their tractor beam, the Tholians can really slow you down. Let's see, let's go do the Borg. And I don't know what else we'll do after this. I guess we'll do Crystalline after this, and maybe some other things as well. Just sit back and relax, guys. I don't really have much else from here except just to show you this ship in combat.
You will be Borg.
Warning, ship is under attack.
From this time forward, your culture will adapt to Zoe's models.
Right shield failing. Left shield failing. Hull integrity below 75%. Target shields have failed.
You will become one with the Borg.
Okay, people, where are we going? Pick a spot and go for it. Up here, okay.
Warning, ship is under attack. Target shields have failed.
You will be Borg.
Going far away, huh?
Warning, ship is under attack. Target shields have failed. 4 shields failing. Rear shields failing. Warning, ship is under attack. 4 shields failing. Rear shields failing.
From this time forward, your culture.
Target shields have failed. The right shield's failing.
Disarm your weapons. You will be. We have the Borg. Resistance is futile.
Nice. There we go. That's taken care of. And that's the Borg going bye-bye. So one thing about the Borg, obviously, is that they have this ability to really strip your shields. And you saw that as I was playing. My shields were like, even though I have a 20,000 capacity on my shields, which is quite high, they were still gone in like an instant with the Borg. So that's one of the problems dealing with the Borg, and then you're just down to your hull strength to save you. But with my ship and its hull healing and shield healing and healing abilities that I have on a ship like this, I was able to stay alive the whole time. That's the important part. And I really like that about a ship like this. I can stay alive in very hard conditions. That slow warp out, I don't know, it's a bug. Does that sometimes. Let's do a crystalline thing. This should be quick to jump into. Crystalline Cataclysm Advanced. Pug it. And pug it and dug it. That makes no sense, but it rhymes. Pug it and dug it. And let's just see how this does. Sometimes these go fast, sometimes these go slow. But I know I can do good. That's about all I can tell you. So let's see what happens. My abilities are still on cooldown, unfortunately. Some of them are. So we'll go there. Hit my offensive. Let everybody warp in. And we'll go head to the crystalline thingy. Hey, I got first place. First place. First place.
4 shields failing.
So a couple of things, or a few things to note about that run. Number one, it was a very slow run. I would say there were not a lot of high DPS heavy hitters in that one. I managed to get first place. So I was obviously doing pretty good there in that one. During the big waves, that come as it absorbs its energy and then lets the energy go, this ship is able to tank that damage quite well on the crystalline entity. I've never blown up on this ship from those events. So this ship, can withstand that energy blast quite well, which makes it very robust. And as you saw, I did get first place there, so doing quite a bit of damage. Overall, though, that was a pretty slow run as far as pugs go. I've definitely been in some that are, a lot quicker. You can get them done in like, a couple of minutes. This was a slow one, but oh well. Still worked out pretty good, and you got to see how this ship handled against something like the crystalline entity. And as you can see, quite well, quite well. Before we end our combat spree here, let's go do a let's go to the Delta Quadrant. I have recently discovered well, I don't know recently, but there is some, I'm going to have to look this up actually. I might not have it correct, but there's one star system out here. When I was recently playing through the whole Delta Quadrant missions, there was one patrol out here that actually was very, very intense. More so than like Argala or something like that. It had a whole lot of enemies in it, and a Vodwar, I think. And it would have been a very good test of testing your ship. And I want to find out what that system was again, because it actually was a pretty good test of the ship's, any ship's ability, because there was a whole lot of Vodwar to take on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause the video, and I'm going to go hopping around and find that particular patrol, because I think I might want to start using it in the future to test my ships in videos like these, because it would be a very good test. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and take the time here and find out which patrol that was. So stand by. Okay, welcome back everybody. I think here what I found that I want to use is the Pansarka system. Patrol Pansarka system. Now this is going to take us to a Hirogen ship. We're going to befriend them for a little while, and both of us are going to take out lots and lots of Vodwar ships. I don't know if this is specifically the patrol I was thinking about earlier. It might have been one of those Commander Rye missions that you have to do when you actually do the patrol missions of the Delta Quadrant. But I don't think you can replay those. So I don't know if I'll, be able to do that. But I'll go look at all of the patrols a little more in depth later on. But for right now, I found this one, and I think this is going to do good to show off our ship against PvE content. And the Vodwar are a pretty tough enemy. They have a pretty killer attack that does a lot of hull damage. So this will be a good test, both to do damage and to tank damage as well. So I'm just going to go in here guns a-blazing. I'm going to use all my abilities, so just sit back and relax and enjoy the show, if this will ever load. Come on, you can do it. I have faith in you, game. You can load this map. I feel it. Come on, 1%. Can I get a 2%? Can I get a 2? And there's a 2%. Can I get a 3? There's a 30. Well, we'll take that instead. This game is weird. Okay, so first we gotta go here into a Vardwar beacon. I'm gonna go ahead and pop all of my thingies out because I know I'm gonna need all of my hangar bays. I'm gonna go to offensive configuration and turn that on. I'm gonna wait for this to cool down. I'm gonna launch them all because I want all my fighters in play here. Okay. This is going to call out the Hirogen. Got to take them out first.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
Okay, now that we've done that, and that was quite easy, by the way, with this ship. Now let's hail them. And they are now our friends, and they're going to help us fight the Vardwar on each of these beacon sections. And they're going to be increasing in numbers. This first batch is not going to be as big as the second one. You know, they'll grow in numbers as we move down the beacons. Actually, this one's not going to pop any Vardwar. They're going to come to visit, and then they're going to leave. So then we go on to the next one, and then we'll fight from there. Look at that. I dominated them. That was cool. Yeah, I totally dominated the Vardwar on that one. They didn't even get a chance to do much. But, as I said, as we go to each beacon, they're going to increase in number till we get to the final battle. Like this one, yeah, look, I'm like surrounded by them. I'm gonna target this one first. That was a nice little battle. That was nice. I wish there were more, actually. I was hoping that would be a little bit of a bigger battle than it was. Yeah, I must be thinking about one of those Sub-Commander Rai missions that you have to do. But those only occur when you are able to do the actual missioning for the Delta Quadrant storyline. And you cannot repeat those. You can only repeat the patrols, but you can't go back and do those. See, if I go back to those Delta Quadrant patrol missions, see the replay on them is grayed out, like Better with Friends and Taking Care of Enemies. All those replays are grayed out, so you can't actually redo those Sub-Commander missions. Unfortunately, it must be one of those I was thinking about, because one of those had just a crap ton of Vodwar in it. And was actually pretty intense, and I wanted to replay that to use as a video for testing ships, but oh well, I guess I'm not going to be able to. This one wasn't too bad. There's probably others out there, I just don't know what they're called at the moment. I would have to go searching other patrols. Maybe you guys know some patrols out there. You could leave a comment and let me know. But there's probably some better ones out there to use. But I will have to go searching all of these to find out, you know, what they all are. I want something with a lot of Vodwar in it. That had a pretty good amount, but there's got to be something else out there that's bigger. That doesn't even have a patrol. Teray World would not. I'm just gonna go quickly here and look at some of these close ones that are close to us. Just make sure they're not anything I'm missing here. I don't know what this one is. Oh, I know this one. Okay. Nope, this one is not what I want. See what this one is. I'm thinking these planets close to the Vodwar homeworld might have a lot of Vodwar, you know, to take out in these. Nope, not that one. No. Well, this one has hierarchy ships. Oh, and they have that terrible ability of using intel powers. So we'll go ahead and do this one real quick since we're here and in it. Yeah, this one's going to be against hierarchy ships.
Ship is under
Those
attack.
stupid intel powers.
Target shield has failed.
They use intel powers and they use EMPs, which is just crazy.
Target shield has failed. Target's shields have failed.
The real battle here is in a second. There's going to be a big battle here.
Ship is under attack. Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
Here we go. Here's the big battle with the hierarchy.
Target's shields have failed.
Here it goes. Here we go.
Warning. Ship is under
Yep, there it is.
Shields have failed.
Well, that went pretty smoothly as well, so. Well, that was a nice, smooth little battle there. Yeah, those hierarchy, man, they use intel powers, and then they also throw out EMP probes at you, too. So they, like, disable every system on your ship and make you blind, and it's crazy, the hierarchy. Okay, well, I don't know what else I can do, guys. I've kind of shown you a lot of things in battle here with this ship. And I think that gets the point across. Hopefully it does. This is a solid ship. It is, I highly enjoy this ship, and I like this ship a lot. The only... Let me move out of the way here so it's a little more quiet. The only way, or the only thing that I don't like about the ship is the Starship Mastery trait, the 6th Starship Mastery trait, or the 5th one, whatever it's called, the Tier 6 Starship Mastery trait. The only reason why I don't like it is because it doesn't quite fit this ship. It would be a better trait on a science ship, but on a ship like this, you're probably not going to be making a science build out of this ship, in which case it doesn't fit very well. The kind of build you would make out of this ship is going to be more of engineering, like I've done here. A lot of beams, heavy damage on your beams and your hangar pets, and you're going to rely on that sort of thing for damage. Maybe drains. Maybe you've got one of those fancy schmancy drain consoles that I just forgot the name of. You know what I'm talking about, the one that everybody wants. And, you know, you're just going to make your build based on that and not exactly exotic damage. So the Starship trait I would do differently on this ship. Now the Chrono Tachyon Capacitor thing, I like it a lot. I mean, it does have a good effect in its abilities. and it can help you do a lot more DPS for sure. Problem is, you got to be really close to the enemy for it to work. You got to be within 5 kilometers, and they have to be firing on you to gain those capacitors that sell things. So it kind of, if you're farther away from the enemy, it's really not going to have any advantage to your ship at all. So it's a cool ability, but it's again one of those kind of abilities that you have to be close to the enemy to use. And sometimes you just don't want to be that close to the enemy, you know? If you are that close to the enemy, especially in a ship this big, you're not going to have a lot of room to maneuver around. And that can be a problem. So I don't typically fight where I'm within that close of a distance to my enemy. I like to fight farther back and like get them all in a group. With my science ships, for example, I pull them all into a gravity well and take them out in a group from farther away in a distance. So I don't typically fly up right on the enemy like that in a ship like this. Now in a raider or an escort, that's where you would probably fly closer to your enemy, you know, to do damage. You would probably fly right up on them, blow them out of the sky, and then pull away fast, because you can do that in an escort or a raider. But in this type of ship, this is not the type of ship that you end up flying so close to the enemy. You kind of take a step backwards with this ship, and you let your fighters do the fighting, and you let your beams do the fighting, and you can get closer to the enemy, and you can tank them very well because of this the stats on this ship. But I don't know. You know, I guess it just all comes down to your piloting style and how you pilot a ship. I just don't know that I would necessarily fly that close to enemies all the time on this type of ship. And so that makes the Chronoton Capacitor, Chronotachyon Capacitor, just a little less of a thing. You know, a little less of a value there. And the Starship trait, absolutely no value for me. But other than those two things, the ship itself is quite good, quite durable, quite a fun ship to play with. It looks aesthetically pleasing. It's a very, very good-looking ship. And it does have Intel Bridge Officer abilities, which I haven't even exploited yet on this ship. So it does have further room for improvement by utilizing Temporal Bridge Officer abilities that I don't know anything about yet at this point. But it supports that, so that's one other thing on this ship that it can do. And like I said, even though all the things I said about the console, the Chronotachyon Capacitor, and all that stuff, you can put the other two consoles from the other ships on this one as well, the one from the Raider and the one from the Science ship. So you can have their abilities on this ship as well, and then combined, it gives you even greater benefits. So it does have that ability as well if you have like the whole bundle of these ships. But my final review on this ship for right now is that I highly enjoy this ship and I highly recommend it. It's a good dreadnought. It is slow, it's slow turning, it's slow moving. You just got to keep that in mind about that. You know, pilot it in that way. But otherwise, it is a fun ship to play with on an engineering character as a cruiser. Has been a very, very good ship. I've enjoyed flying this ship. It's a ship that I could see myself using in the long term. So that's quite good. I may do a future video review follow-up on this ship once I get some temporal bridge officer powers figured out. Not quite sure. But for right now, this will be my review on this ship. I give it 2 thumbs up. Thank you all for watching, and let me know in the comments what you think of this ship, if you have this ship, if you've flown it, what your builds are like, if you enjoy it, or if you don't enjoy it, if you absolutely hate it and you think it's the worst ship in the game. Why is that? Why do you think that? And why do you like this ship? I would like to hear both sides of the aisle on that. And then also, after watching this video, do you plan to get this ship? Is it interesting to you now after watching it in action? Or does this solidify your idea that you just will not get this ship, that it just doesn't interest you at all? I'd be interested in all those comments. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.